welcome to Eye on Ocean County. I'm Laura Jones, and this half hour we're going to be talking about the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve in Tuckerton. Our guest right now, Lisa Auermuller. She is the Watershed Coordinator, and Gregg Sakowicz. He is the Field Researcher. Good to have you both here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think a lot of people may not realize that this even exists?
I think that's probably very true.
It's a best-kept secret?
I think it's a very good best-kept secret, but we'd like to change that.
You're here to blow the lid off of it. Well, tell us a little bit about the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve. That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, I agree. The Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve is one of 27 reserves around the country. We have the unique opportunity to use the name Jacques Cousteau in our title. Many of the other reserves are named and designated based on their geographic location. But all the reserves around the country have a similar mission, and that's to promote informed decision-making of watershed areas using science and research, education, and promoting stewardship activities throughout the watershed.
Obviously, it's very much about keeping the nation's estuaries, correct? Estuaries, healthy. And Gregg, you do field research, so tell me a little bit about what your job entails.
That's correct. Well, what I do is I oversee the operations of the system-wide monitoring program, which is in place at all 27 reserves, as well as oversee a lot of the field operations for the research that we perform. And so to begin with, I'll discuss SWMP, which is the system-wide monitoring program. As I said, all 27 reserves perform this kind of monitoring, and what we do is we monitor water conditions, weather conditions, and nutrient levels in the waters of the estuary. And the really nice thing about SWMP is that since all 27 reserves perform SWMP, we can cross-compare our data with other reserves, as well as use our data to analyze things like storm events, say coastal flooding, drought conditions, things like that.
All right. What is for people out there who are not that don't really keep close tabs on things like this? Explain the importance. Why do you need places like this to manage and keep an eye on the environment?
Right. I think what we do is really important, and people need to be aware of it, because we are using science-based information to help people make better decisions, to inform them about how to live their daily lives in ways that integrate the science that's happening in their own backyard. Many people aren't aware that all these different things are happening, and there's great information that's being generated, and the information can help you really understand better the world you're living in and the important things that people need to decide on a daily basis.
And I know this might sound kind of, common sense for you, but what is an estuary for those out there watching? Can you explain it?
That's a great question. We have a really simple way of explaining that, and they're locations where rivers meet the sea. And many people would think of an estuary maybe as a coastal marsh system. In our case, the river we're talking about is the Mullica River, meeting the Atlantic Ocean and the Great Bay area in the southern part of Ocean County, and that's our estuary.
Okay. Now we've got some pictures that we want to show here. One is of a watershed. Let's take a look at that. There we go. So
that is our watershed.
That is a watershed.
That's the Mullica River,
okay.
And eventually draining out into Great Bay and then out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, yeah.
It really is. Okay, and now we also have, I'm going to say it's the Jacques Cousteau, NERR, Water and Weather and Nutrient Monitoring Stations. Now, Gregg, can you tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what we're looking at here?
What this shows is some of the equipment that we use to perform the monitoring associated with SWMP. On the left-hand side, that image is actually channel marker 126. In the background, you can actually see the Rutgers University Marine Field Station, which is our partner group. And that is generally in the mouth of the Great Bay estuary. So that's just an example of one of our stations. You can see, it's kind of difficult to see on the image, but there's a PVC pipe that goes down the leg of the structure, and that is through which we pass this monitoring equipment. It's actually a small computer, for lack of a better word, that measures temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, depth, pH, and turbidity. Turbidity being how clear the water is.
What are some of the things that you're finding?
Well, generally, the nice thing about the JCNERR, our location, is that we're regarded as one of the least impacted estuaries within the NERR system. And so...
What does that mean, a least impacted?
That
nature, everybody's being kind to the environment, or?
Besides a little bit of a few communities upriver and some older, say, chicken farms and whatnot. The area has not been terribly impacted by anthropogenic impacts, anything that good or bad that comes along with human activities.
Right.
And so our role is somewhat to collect the baseline data so that, again, if we were to compare this with a more impacted estuary monitored by another reserve system, they have a basis of comparison for which they can compare their data.
The information that you take, what do you do with this? Is this to take to communities to say, hey, you better watch out, you're doing too much building here, here's what's happening to the environment, and what do you do with the information?
Well, all the data that we collect and all of the other reserves collect is available at the website nersdata.org.
Okay.
And we invite everybody from scientists to people interested in the water to fishermen to people swimming to access that site and to take a look at the data and start to understand it. But the data that we collect, we also provide to researchers to facilitate their studies as well.
Okay.
And I think that it's important to add that we are not an advocacy organization, so we don't go to places and tell them this is the data, this is what we want you to do with it. We say we have this great information, we've been collecting it for a really long time, here are some trends that we're seeing, and this will help inform you when you go to make future decisions.
Okay, so some of the things, the core programs, research, coastal training, education to the community, and again, professional development for teachers as well.
And we're going to talk about that in a little while, some
Right.
of those programs. But Gregg really helps lead up our research programs for the
Right, and there's a
reserve.
volunteer program as well?
Right.
What is that?
We have many retired residents that live in Southern Ocean County, many of which were professionals in their professional careers and are still really willing to be engaged and want to get their feet wet and learn more about the area they're living in
Quite
now.
literally?
Quite literally, yeah, actually. And they moved here from maybe somewhere more north, but now they want to learn more about the area. So we have opportunities from going out in the boats and working with our field research team to more administrative activities in the office setting and sort of everything in between. So we have a little bit for everybody.
So, Gregg, you're out, a field researcher. You're out there. You're in the
Correct.
field. That must be very exciting work. Now, you touched a little bit, and I want to bring up some of the pictures again.
Sure,
The system-wide monitoring program, SWMP,
Correct.
is what you call
Yes.
it. But again, these are just methods of monitoring water parameters, weather conditions, and the water nutrient levels.
Correct.
We have one again of the is that the interface?
That's the interface at nersdata.org.
Okay, what is that?
And that shows our monitoring stations. We have 4 water monitoring stations and 1 weather monitoring station, as well as we go to all the water monitoring stations once a month and take water samples and process them for nutrient levels, so we know how much nutrients and what kind are being introduced into the estuary mostly by human activity.
And after a storm, is this when you need to reevaluate again? Is that?
Oftentimes, yes, because a lot of times what will happen is people will, say, fertilize their lawns over periods of drought or less rain, and then when it actually does rain, it often pours, and so that flushes a lot of those nutrients into the estuary, which will have a number of impacts on the organisms in the water.
Such as?
It can feed phytoplankton blooms, and what will happen is phytoplankton are just essentially, they're kind of plants, and they will feed on those nutrients, just as the grass on your lawn will feed on the nutrients. Phytoplankton will feed on the nutrients, and their populations will grow and grow, and they'll exhaust that food supply eventually, and they'll die. And then the bacteria will come in, and often what will happen is it will lead to a low dissolved oxygen event, which will then affect things like shellfish, fish, detrimental effects, obviously.
It's amazing some of the information that you're able to pull. And again, folks can go to the website, NERRsdata.org.
Correct.
Or you call it NERS data?
Yes.
NERS data. Okay. Or JCNERR.org to get more information. Now, Lisa's going to be sticking around. We're going to say goodbye to Gregg.
Right.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
taking the
much.
time to talk to us. But we're going to be talking a little bit more about stormwater management as we continue here on Eye on Ocean County. Stay with us.